Hi, it's Olivia, and you are looking at a massive Hunger Games fan, or at least that's what I would tell you for about the past 10 years. I can't remember the exact time, but I read it sometime mid to late 2009, or possibly early 2010. I just remember that by the time Mockingjay came out, like I had been waiting a long time already, and I remember getting it the day it came out, and that was in 2010. So if it hasn't been 10 years, it's been very close to 10 years. And I just want to see what I think of it now. Obviously my personal experience and memories and nostalgia attached to it now, that's not gonna go away. I'm still gonna consider this one of probably the most influential book that I've ever read. But you know, readers grow up and preferences change, and maybe the things that you enjoy and the things that you dislike have, you know, been a little updated. So I'm just gonna share my general thoughts about the book. I know so many people have read it by now, so I wonder if saying spoilers is necessary, but I will get into spoilers more into it. I'm gonna start out with the pros and talking about certain things, but I did want to point out one question. I want to know if anyone else wondered this too. But one question I had going into this book that I've had for the past several years is, what does the world look like outside of Panem? We know of the capital and the districts and this terrible system that they've come up with, the Hunger Games, and it takes place in the ruins of what was once North America. But is the rest of the world just watching this nation, you know, let kids kill each other? Are they just, what's going on? And what does the planet look like? I was under the impression that it's a dystopian thing, so maybe they're all that's left in the world. But if there's other people out there, other nations, I really wonder what they're up to. And I can tell you that question's not answered, so, you know, I don't know, take of that what you will, but that was just something I found interesting. But anyway, the plot in this book, I think, still remains the highlight, the strong point. From the synopsis to the execution, it's just horrible and fascinating, and I found myself so interested in reading about how terrible how terrible and weird the capital is, and how oppressive it is and unfair. And it made me realize how much this book plants the seeds of rebellion. Also, I think one of the things that got so many people reading this, I would assume people feel the same way, is that it's a very fast read. I think it's a super quick pace. The characters go from one place to another in such a short amount of time in the pages. And it's also this thing where so many of the chapters end in little cliffhangers, and also the writing is super simple. It's not really flowery, and there's not that many metaphors and similes, you know, that kind of writing is just very direct. For the characters, I was thinking about this, and like I said, it's fast-paced, and I feel like the plot is the strong point, and the characters are kind of just pulled along, you know, they're forced to do everything they're being told. And there's not many moments at the very beginning of the book, where we see Katniss out hunting. That's the only time we see her doing anything just kind of in her own element. Because for the rest of the book, they're being forced to do interviews, to train, to get, you know, all glammed up for stuff, and then obviously being thrown in the arena. So I feel if they come off bland, I get it. Katniss came off to me as very realistic, even with how she handles her emotions. It's when she realized, oh, Peeta's kind of nice, I kind of like him, but we'll have to kill each other. So she kind of distanced herself, and just in general, she kind of has this antisocial vibe. But there's also these elements I can relate to, but she's also very strong, and I thought she was super smart in the games. Smarter than me. That's a question I think everybody has. Let me know what you think. If you were in the Hunger Games, do you think you'd survive? I think I would be like a Rue, you know, I just hang out in the trees, hope everybody else dies. Anyway, and as for Peeta and Gale, I remember it became a Team Peeta, Team Gale. I have no preference, because what I realize is they also we don't really see much of Gale, except when Katniss is describing her memories with him. So he came off very brotherly to me. And then Peeta, we honestly don't really know much about Peeta, except that he is a baker and he likes Katniss, and he's also in the games with Katniss. We really don't know much about him at all. So I don't know, I can't root for him. I couldn't really root for anybody because I didn't know these people. Anyway, I guess one of my cons is, like I said, we don't really know what the world looks like outside of Panem, but also, you know, we have this horrible event, the Hunger Games, and I understand that the capital is this really terrible, oppressive thing, but I still can't understand how it got to the point of having this. You know, for something so terrible, I want to know exactly how it got to that point. And so we don't really have the backstory. It kind of just tells us there was, you know, there was a civil war and rebellion way back 75 years ago, and that's why they implemented the Hunger Games. But I want to know the details of why and how it got to that point, how people just went along with it. I don't want to say they went along with it because I'm sure they were forced to go along with it, but I just want to know more details of how we got the Hunger Games, and I feel like we didn't really get that. And also, I feel like the last chapter or two could probably be cut off from the book because we're riding this high of all these cliffhangers and it's really gripping, and we have our climax and kind of like the little like resolution, and then we have this extra, like, I can't remember if it's a chapter or two, and it just feels like this is how we're ending it. Like, that's it. I don't know. It was kind of anticlimactic at the very end, and they could have done away with that. There's 27 chapters, and looking even at the last paragraph, even the last sentence of chapter 26, I think that would have been a perfect way to end the book. So I guess that wraps up my general thoughts, and I could tell you that I still very much enjoyed reading this book. I'd probably give it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars, whereas before I would have given it a 5 or 6 out of 5 stars. And I really enjoyed talking about this, so I'm going to continue talking more details and spoiler things if you feel like it. I know I've been talking a while, so if that's where you leave, then goodbye. Nice chatting. So getting right into all my people who have read the book. What is your favorite scene? Because mine, I think, without a doubt, is the Tracker Jacker scene. When I first read it, when I read it the second time, and even in the movie. Well, I don't know if I would say in the movie. Oh yeah, I love this scene. Using the wasp to get rid of so many tributes right there, and how intense it is with the hallucinations, the effect that it has, and just even from the moment that she starts sawing into it, like, I love that scene. And again, I would be your root. I would be the person that says, hey Katniss, can you deal with this? You know, potentially get stung. You take out the careers, we let go, you know, let some of them get killed. I'll just hang out in my little tree. Something that I thought was really interesting was when they would briefly describe what the past arenas look like. You know, I honestly think that they got kind of lucky with the arena that they had. Because in past ones, they've been described as very harsh environments. There's like one where it's just a desert and, you know, dying of thirst was a huge issue. And then it described how the capital citizens would make these tourist destinations and they would get reenactments and stuff. And that's just blows my mind. And it's crazy to think that, like, there is an actual Hunger Games theme park. They, like, in real life I forget where it is located. Definitely outside of the US, and obviously it's not like an arena or anything, but the parallel is still there. I just wrote down a note of like how, like I said, the games are brutal, and on page 219 describes how one year you know how they are on their kind of spots before they take off when the games start to the cornucopia? They described how one year a girl dropped her token, a small wooden ball, while she was at her plate, and they literally had to scrape bits of her off the ground because if they step off their plate, they blow up. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, my goodness. And also at the end, I think it was handled much quicker in the movie, but Cato had a long and terrible death in this book. Like, he's described for hours being mauled by the mutts at the end. For hours, you could just hear him. Speaking of the mutts, if I remember correctly, I think the mutts were the cause of the death of Thresh. But speaking of Thresh, so we didn't really see what he was doing this entire book. We only got his one cool scene where he came out, and I don't know how realistic it is that he let Katniss go. But, you know, he saved her from, was it Clove? And I think in the book he used a rock. I'm getting it mixed up with the movie, but he used a rock to like bash in her skull. But then he just kind of ran off to where he came. Everyone just let him be, because there's this area in the arena described in the book that no one wanted to go into because it like dropped off, and no one really, I think it was described as like an open field of like really tall grass or wheat, and nobody wanted to go in there. And so they thought that Thresh was just hiding out in there. If that's the case, he kind of had it good. He was just hanging out in a field by himself. So I really enjoyed talking about this book. I do plan to continue my reread because this was so fun, and I remember Catching Fire being my favorite of the trilogy. So let me know your thoughts, and I will see you in another video. Bye.